The Rowan Gant series in and of itself, it was an accident, quite honestly. I've always wanted to write. I've been writing ever since I could fit a crayon in my fist, and I always loved telling stories, which I guess kind of makes me a pathological liar, in a sense, because I write fiction. But what happened is, after many years of writing short stories and a few manuscripts that never saw the light of day and probably should never see the light of day, I got the bug again and really wanted to write something. So I was going through some of my old manuscripts, and I ran across this interesting sci-fi kind of thing that I'd written, and thought, you know, if I backdate this a bit, put it in present day, turn it into a detective mystery sort of thing, might be fun. And add witchcraft in there, because, you know, I was, you know, practicing pagan and dealt with witchcraft and such. I'd researched a lot of it. I thought that might be a good paranormal twist. And the next thing I knew, I was writing the Rowan Gant investigation series, the first book, Harm None. And little did I know that I was writing a cross-mixed genre sort of thing, because it was part horror, part mystery, detective, police procedural, part paranormal fantasy. So I was kind of at the leading edge of a genre that didn't exist at the time. And you know, so it was very hard to get placed with a publisher. And when I first initially was placed with a publisher, they wanted to make changes that fit it into a pigeonhole of a single genre as opposed to the mixed genre. And I ended up with a different publisher, obviously. But since then, the mixed genre has grown. And I've just continued forward with the Rowan Gant investigations, because there's so many stories I can tell. Miranda was the 10th novel. There is also a novelette that was in an anthology, which was called "And You're Gonna Think I'm Nuts," is what it's called. The name of the anthology is Courting Morpheus, but it was the Rowan Gant story that appeared in the anthology. So it's kind of like 10 1/4 or something like that. And there's an 11th one that comes out next year. The inspiration for my characters is everyone around me and the events that happen around me. I put a little bit of myself and all of my friends and relatives into each of my characters. They're amalgams of everyone I know, really. And in some instances, you know, a character will be actually one particular person that I know with their permission. But I write what I know. I write the people that I know, and I add them to give it a true flavor and make the characters real. There's a lot of me in Rowan Gant, although Rowan's a lot better looking and a lot calmer than I am. He's one part me, one part my father, one part a buddy of mine who's a cop. He's you know, he's really an amalgam. Felicity, Rowan's wife, is an amalgam of multiple people. However, I will say that she is largely based on my wife in personality, in that, not that my wife goes off screaming Gaelic curses at anyone, because she doesn't even speak Gaelic, but my wife is a petite little red-headed gal, and she is a very strong individual. And I use her as a model for Felicity, because Felicity is a very strong female character, and my wife is a great inspiration to me at times, or all the time, really. And so I put a lot of her in her strength and such into the character, and then I pull other little interesting tidbits here and there and attach it to Felicity and kind of glue it on here and there and make her into a fully rounded character. I can't name a single festival or book signing where I have been that someone hasn't walked up to me and said, well, I read your books and I love them, and I know you're Rowan. And every time, I read something Felicity's doing, I know that's your wife. And, granted, that's a danger of putting, some of yourself in the characters, but, we really aren't, my wife's not a professional photographer, and I'm not a professional computer consultant. I don't solve crimes for the St. Louis Major K Squad. It's all fiction, but I do on occasion deal with some folks who are just absolutely convinced that we are the characters, and it's interesting at times. Most of the time, it's fun. Sometimes it's a little scary. I do try to explain that it is all fiction and that the characters are, as I said, amalgams of many people, and that we don't really have those professions. Other times I just run screaming in the opposite direction. It really depends on how intense the individual is. But most of the time we have a nice discussion, and I've yet to have anyone walk away agreeing with me that I'm not Rowan. They say, well, no matter what, every time I read one of your books, I'm going to see you when I read Rowan, or I'm going to see your wife. And I'm like, okay, because that's one of the great things about books. When you're reading a book, you get to take the base description of the character and see whoever you want. You can make them be taller or shorter or better looking or whatever. You can see whoever you want. So that I'm perfectly willing to accept that. I mean, after all, I write books. That's what I set out to do. I see the series will continue as long as people are reading them. As long as they're selling and people are reading them and the publisher is willing to publish them, I will continue writing them. If I run out of ideas and the stories get stale, well, no more Rowan Gant. The stories I've had a lot of fun with because they've developed over the years. The characters have grown, the characters have changed, matured. Their views on life and religion and such have skewed this way and that, and they've had this crisis of faith or that crisis of faith and come back around. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know them and seeing them grow and turn into somewhat different people than they were at the beginning of the series. So I see that continuing to happen. In the 11th book, since there was a major, I need to back up for a second. There was a major section of the series which started out as a trilogy and turned into what we'll call a quintilogy. We call it the Miranda Saga. It started off with an antagonist who was supposed to last for 3 books. She was originally supposed to last for 1 book, but she, spread herself out across 3 books, and there was a satisfactory ending to that trilogy, but there were some unanswered questions, and she was just such a great antagonist that I was able to use her for 2 more books. So it turned into a 5-book arc within the series of this antagonist, and it caused some interesting revelations and changes in Rowan's life and Felicity's life. And because of that, they're going to go through a change where Rowan's involvement in investigations and murder investigations and such is going to become a larger role, a more important role than it has been in the past, and on a much wider basis, bigger level. So I don't want to give away too much. I mean, people who have read the series probably have a clue, when they reach the end of Miranda, but if you haven't read it yet, I don't want to give any spoilers. I have some ideas for different books. If I could get my schedule kind of rounded out where I'm not doing as much traveling and don't have as many other things going on in my life, I would love to maybe put out 2 books per year, or maybe take a break from Rowan for a year and do another novel. I have some ideas for some more mainstream fiction. I have some ideas for more paranormal, a different set of paranormal detectives with a different bent to where they're heading with the story. And I even have some ideas for some erotica, which I don't know if that would go over. I don't even know if I could write erotica very well, but I've got some ideas, and I'd like to try my hand at it at some point. That's all in the future, and I don't see myself writing any nonfiction because I don't perceive myself as knowledgeable enough on any one subject to be able to write a nonfiction book about it. I'm good at making things up. Pagan Unity Festival in Tennessee, absolutely wonderful festival. I've got that coming up early next year. There's another festival in Texas. that's called the Sisters of the Earth and Seed do it. It's called the Ostara Fest, you know, just come out and see me at a festival and we'll talk and buy books, buy books, because that way I can actually send my daughter to college someday maybe.
Well, and you can continue to write.
And I can continue to write. That'd be a good thing. And my wife won't like, you know, lock me in the basement and make me eat wheat bread or something, you know, with a typewriter. Yes, she does that. You know, that's how the books happen. She chains me to the desk when she leaves in the morning and says, you know, if the house catches on fire, dial 911. But other than that, I expect 10 pages by the time I get home. That's pretty much how it happens.
Well, it's a good thing she's around then.
Yes, really it is. Without her, I don't think I'd ever become a writer.